What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/All-NBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Tim Legler. Legs, it feels like forever since we've talked about the games, the actual games. And I'm excited because we had the trade deadline in the last week, a lot of news there. Then we didn't have any games for a while, but we had a lot of games last night and some interesting ones. I'm excited to talk about them. How about you?
Yeah, same. I mean, obviously, you get that long break. It's a lot longer break than it used to be. So you do take a break from it, rejuvenate yourself. This is the best time of the year now. You come out of the break, and I feel like the NBA season officially starts. That's kind of how it feels to me. The first couple nights of games after the break, everything matters more. So many ramifications. You're going to see guys miss fewer nights now, going the rest of the way. They're going to play through some stuff they wouldn't have probably the first two-thirds of the year. And so this is going to be the best basketball the NBA can put out there. You're going to see between now and the end of the season.
100% agree. Although I will say last night, there's the excitement because you have the All-Star break. The games they felt more like the first game of the regular season than they did the middle point of the regular season. I don't know what it is, Legs, but a week off, and the games were a little sloppy. Like, they were competitive, they were intense, but the execution, I thought, across the board last night was a little low, even though they were good games.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that, and that's going to happen because you think about it, like, because it's a long break, teams give guys the luxury of having time off. Like, it's not like you're not participating All-Star weekend. Okay, we're going to be in here grinding it out every day. Guys get a break. So, you go and you kind of get into that mindset a little bit. There's a little bit of rust there. But I think overall, what you're going to start seeing in the games that you watch from this point forward, you're going to notice a different level of intensity and urgency. And I did see that last night in the games I watched, even if there was some, sloppy play or some rust there. I think I'm looking at the intensity and how much it matters. And it seemed like it mattered more last night than it has in a while.
We're going to talk about a couple games that had that intensity, the Knicks and the Bulls. We're also going to talk about the Pacers and the Grizzlies. Those will be the two games we go deep on. Later in the show, we'll get you ready for the weekend, as we always do on Fridays, by previewing a great weekend, by the way. Some really big games over the weekend. But we have to start with some layup lines. We'll get that layup lines going here, James. And we have to start with our top story, Legs. Look at me, not sunburned. Not a lobster. I see the chat already going off on it. I tried to tell people it was a camera situation. I don't have the great camera work that Legs does from hotel to hotel, always getting the lighting perfect. But look at me, Legs. You thought I was all burned? Look at me. I'm glowing.
I don't know how you pulled this. I don't know how you pulled this off or what filters you're using to make yourself look like a normal human being when you clearly took a vacation on the sun. I don't know how you did it, man. But kudos to you because I was concerned. I was very concerned.
Really worried
that you were just going to be sitting there like smoldering with like smoke coming off you today. I'm glad to see we've got this situation under control.
We got it under control, man. Nobody panic. In all seriousness, though, our real top story, which I know you didn't hit yesterday because the news dropped right, I think, as you were live or perhaps right after, but Victor Wembanyama is out for the year. A complete and total shock. There was no signs of this coming, although apparently there were some signs internally. He was feeling fatigue, abnormal fatigue, was reporting it to the team in the week or weeks leading up to the All-Star break. And over the All-Star break, they run some tests and they find out he has a blood clot. That word to me, always really concerning because we've seen it end careers. All indications right now is that this doesn't feel, necessarily career threatening or anything like that. But nonetheless, the Spurs were in line for a great year. They made a big trade. It looked like they were headed for at least the play-in, if not the playoffs. But now they're without Victor Wembanyama the rest of the year. What do you make of this news?
I mean, shocked. I mean, it's funny because I was about to board a flight to come to Houston, and my phone was blowing up from ESPN asking me to get in front of a camera to go on SportsCenter because of the, quote, Wemby news. And I'm like, I didn't even know what it was. They didn't say what it was. So I literally had to Google, oh, my God, what happened to Victor Wembanyama? I didn't know what it was. And then you see that and you're just like, wow, man, like stunning. Obviously, nobody sees it coming. He just participated in All-Star weekend and didn't know there was anything going on. And then you get this news. So it's terrible for him more so even than the franchise. Yeah, it's nice that they're more competitive this year, and like we don't know how this was going to end up, make the play in, not make the play in, whatever. We know where it's trending with Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox now in the fold. Like this franchise is on its way back. We know that. When it's going to get there to actual relevance in the West, who knows? But now, okay, you put that on hold. That's disappointing, right? You're not going to see the guy the rest of the year. That's the first thing. You think that's disappointing for us because he's so fun to watch. He's so unique. For the Spurs, obviously, it kind of sets it back a little bit in terms of their progress. But most importantly, Adam, is what about the long-term implications of this for Victor Wembanyama? There's a lot of unknowns with this. And if you just go and read about this, which I was yesterday, and I was watching a number of medical experts on different media platforms talking about this, there's a lot going on here, man, with some of the medications he's going to have to take and how limited he's going to be while he's doing that with physical activity, because it's very dangerous if he subjects himself to physical contact while he's taking some of the blood thinners and whatnot that apparently he's going to be on. And there is no real known, no one really knows exactly what the future is going to hold for Victor Wembanyama. That's the part that's most disturbing and upsetting for this young man who's, as we all described, is not having a ceiling because there's just nothing quite like him has ever really come into the league. And now you got to sit back and just be mostly concerned about his health. And the first time we're going to see him, it is going to be next fall, most likely. And who knows what transpires in the meantime. So just mainly you're just worried about him and his health. And people might think maybe I'm overstating that, but if you really look at the worst case scenario for something like this, which I think you have to, it's scary stuff. So shocked and disappointed for the franchise, disappointed for us as fans. We can't watch him, but mostly I'm just concerned for Victor Wembanyama.
Let's put aside the long-term thing because I don't think anybody really knows. Is this a thing that they should expect to come back or linger or any of that stuff? Let's assume that he's out for the year, and I know that they're going to be very cautious with him over the next several months. Not wanting to put himself at risk, but he's a young player who has a steep learning curve right now. He's getting better every single game. And now you have to take a hiatus, several months of not playing, and then you're going to go into an offseason presumably not playing and maybe not even working out at full capacity. You're going to be very cautious. So I look at that and say these years, when you're in your early 20s, this is where you grow the most as a player. This is where you make your big leaps. He was in line for that. How do you think this affects that part of it? If we assume he's healthy come October, but he's not going to be able to have a full summer, how do you think that'll affect his growth?
I'm not too concerned about that because of his age and his skill set. That he's, by all accounts, is a worker. And look, this is a topic I feel like we're constantly involved in. Like, who really wants it? Who wants to be great? Who wants to be a guy that not just one day can be a champion or one day be an MVP, but guys that want to be all-time greats? And it sounds like the people that have been around him on a daily basis say he has that quality. So that assuming he gets through this and physically he's cleared to play with no limitations at some point going forward, and this doesn't recur, I'm not too concerned about him missing one summer or, a short time period in the big picture with a guy this young with a skill set like this that wants to be in the gym, that just has that drive. I'm not too worried about that.
A lot of people draw the parallels to Tim Duncan coming to the Spurs. David Robinson goes down, and they end up having this fake tank year where their team was artificially bad. And some people suspecting that might happen here where, okay, well, the Spurs maybe are playing team, maybe they fall. But last night, that was not the case because they beat the Phoenix Suns behind De'Aaron Fox's 26 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. But to me, I don't know if this story is bigger for the Spurs because I don't know that I have a lot of intrigue or hope for them the rest of the way. But the Suns losing to that team coming out of the break the way that they did to me is just, that's a harbinger of things to come, in my opinion, for the Suns. This is more about the Suns' inability to get a much needed win in a moment when they had nothing but the ability to focus on this one. To me, it tells you a lot about the state of the Suns and maybe what we should expect about them going forward.
Oh, there's no question about it. They don't have collective will. They don't have collective fight. They just don't. You watch them, it's a listless team. And it does not look like a team with a lot of cohesion and chemistry and connectivity to each other.
No.
They don't look like they just don't. When you watch them, it's just passionless. And they can make shots. They've got some talent. So some nights they're going to win some games. They're going to put up some numbers. That's not what I'm talking about. We know the difference between a team that's connected to each other and fighting and willing to go into the alley and fight for every square inch. We know what that looks like, and we know what teams that don't have that look like, and the Suns don't. And that's the bottom line. They just don't have the passion they need on a nightly basis for whatever reason. Maybe they don't have a connection to Budenholzer. Like that hasn't maybe been the hire and the connection there that they were looking for. Maybe it's the connection between Booker and Durant. Maybe it's, the role players are disillusioned because of everything that's going on. They don't feel empowered. Who knows? Maybe it's all of that. But whatever it is, you watch the Suns, and they're that weird team. Like there are teams in this league that play hard and don't have enough talent, and they lose a lot, but they play hard and they compete. Then there's other teams that have a lot of talent and don't play as hard and still win some games because they have so much talent. That's kind of the category the Suns fall into. They still have enough shot making that they're going to win, but 500 type team. They're a run of the mill team. They don't have any fight, man. So I totally agree with you. That says a lot more about Phoenix Suns than it does about what we can expect out of San Antonio moving forward.
And they sit now 2 games outside of the play-in just to get up to the 10 seed. And I know it's only 2 games. I mean, quote unquote only, but we're at the point in the season now where 2 games means more. 2 games is not something you just, you blink at. You look at that and say, hey man, 2 games you have to make up just to crawl to that 10 seed on a very motivated Golden State Warriors team and also a Sacramento Kings team. So the deadline is now for them to kind of get it to go together. They've lost 4 in a row. They're 2-8 in their last 10. And as you mentioned, this is the point in the season where if you're talking about connectedness on a veteran team, it's probably too late. So we'll see what comes of it. But
there's no, and listen to your point, by the way, you're talking about Chase, and let's just talk about those 2 teams, Golden State and Sacramento. And Golden State, you're talking about a team that is desperate. They're desperate because of Steph Curry. That organization will do anything. That group of guys around Curry will do anything to try to give Steph Curry more opportunities to play in the postseason. Like, so every night you're going to get their best fight. Now they might not have enough talent, but of course they just added Jimmy Butler. So I think they're going to be better going forward. And he, by the way, is very motivated right now because everything that went down in Miami, and he's always very motivated initially when he goes to a new place. So you're going to get a better version of Jimmy Butler. You're going to get, an organization committed to Curry. So they're going to fight and claw every step of the way. So they're not going to catch the Golden State Warriors. And then Sacramento's kind of reinvented themselves and what they are. And so I don't know how much I love the Sacramento Kings, but I do think for the most part, I watch them, they play hard. So we'll see.
The Kings are one of the more interesting teams to me coming out of the break, because whenever you make that trade, it's like, okay, we got a break to rethink about what we want to accomplish and who we are. So I'm very excited to watch them over the weekend and see what they've got. Another bad news, Bobby Portis suspended for 25 games for taking tramadol, which he says he thought was it, what's the other one?
Toradol.
Yeah, the more common one. We see these every time there's somebody that gets caught with a substance. It's always, well, I didn't know. I thought I was taking this and somebody handed it to me and I didn't know. And I hate that excuse because it always seems to me like it just seems false. That seems like the go-to thing you would say. But in this case, from everything I've heard, tramadol doesn't provide an actual value to a player that's like meaningful. So this is one where I might actually believe it, but nonetheless, 25 games is a season changer for the Bucks for a player as important as Bobby Portis.
Yeah, I mean, the agent came out and explained it in a way that they described. I kind of believe it. It was an assistant. It was a personal assistant of Bobby Portis that gave him something that he thought he mistook it for Toradol because they sound the same. Tramadol, Toradol. They sound very similar. The assistant got it confused. It was a prescribed medication. He gave it to him. He took it. They're both, from what I read, I know what Toradol is. I had Toradol when I played. Like Toradol is for pain and inflammation. Yeah, it's very common. It's very prevalent around the NBA now. When I played, it was more like naproxen was the thing, which we found out later caused a lot of long-term health implications. In fact, that is what made Alonzo Mourning and ultimately cost him a kidney, was naproxen, which we were taking like candy when I played. And so you find out later, Toradol, very common now in the NBA for the same thing, pain and inflammation. You're banging your body up. You need that stuff. And now you got Tramadol. And it sounds like an honest mistake. I don't know why you would risk something like that if you knew what you were. It just doesn't make sense. So I do think it was an honest mistake, but it cost him the rest of the regular season. And he's a big, big factor for the Bucks. And he is so important to them for their energy and the consistent productivity off the bench. He's one of the best bench players in this league. And it's a big loss for them in the regular season that they've got to figure out and try to weather.
Well, it wasn't a big loss for them last night as they get the win 116-110 over the Clippers. The Clippers had their horses in this one. Kawhi Leonard goes for 25 points. James Harden, 24 points. Zubac's 20 and 15. They had their guys and they still fall to the Bucks. And the Clippers to me are like, both of these teams are interesting to me now going forward. Kuzma had 13 points and 7 for them in his, as he's new to that team. But when you look at this, bigger story to you for the Bucks or for the Clippers, and what do you make of both teams and where they're at right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bigger story for the Bucks. And you get a night when Damian Lillard doesn't play well at all, 2 for 12 against a really good defensive team, and you don't have Portis, which is a major factor for them, particularly on nights when Lillard struggles. And they're still able to beat the Clippers and put up 116 points on them. That to me is that's more important about the Bucks than what it is about the Clippers. The Clippers, for me, I have felt like all year have been a great story because of they've overachieved. I do believe that based on their overall offensive talent. I think they've overachieved. And Norman Powell's taken his game to a place that nobody expected. That's allowed them to have enough offense every night around a very good perimeter defensive team in particular. Zubac has been incredible for that team. James Harden has been great. And you knew what to expect out of James Harden at this stage of his career. So you add it all up, it's like gone about as well as it possibly could for the Clippers to this, but to be, what are they, 7 games above 500. And it takes everything that they've had for the most part healthy. And so for me, this is more about the Bucks, man. This is a quality win against the Clippers, particularly without Portis and a night when Lillard struggles, and you're still able to get the win. So kudos to the Bucks.
I wanted to ask you real quickly, because we've done a lot on the Lakers, but lately, and I know they have some big games coming up over the weekend, including against Denver, that I think will tell the story a little bit more about them. But they've struggled with Luka, and Luka has struggled. LeBron goes for 40 points last night. But my big note, and I thought, shout out to Nick Wright. I thought he had maybe my favorite take of this. We always think about this in terms of like, oh, now the Lakers get Luka, they get this or that. Luka, confidence is such an important part of basketball for all players. And we think about that for role players more. Luka's a superstar. Who should be more confident than him? But when a team trades you the way they did, it's possible that gives you a confidence, a knock to your confidence. And when I watched Luka play the last game he played for the Lakers, it was jarring how not confident he looked, how awkward he looked. And now that we have a sample size under our belt with Luka there, it looks like LeBron's team, and Luka looks like a shell of himself, not just physically, but from a confidence standpoint. And I just wonder what you thought of that.
Listen, I'm telling you, I'm really, really big on the topic, and we could do a whole show on sports psychology. Yeah. And because even the greatest players, Scottie Pippen even told me once, and he worked at ESPN for a short time in studio, and I did some shows with him, and he told me, this is one of the all-time great players. He said every year at some point he struggled with his confidence. It's I don't care who you are, you're a human being. Maybe there is that rare breed. Maybe there is, the Kobe Bryants, Michael Jordans of the world. They don't feel that. Even a guy like LeBron James, who I think most people say at worst is the second best player of all time. I don't think there's any question. We've watched LeBron James throughout his career and knew that there were times he wasn't as confident with his perimeter shot or his free throw shooting, whatever it may be. Sports psychology is a huge part of this. There's no doubt this has rattled Luka Doncic to the core. I do not doubt that for a second. When you combine it with the fact that he is not in great shape because of the time off, he wasn't in great shape to start the season and then only played 22 games. He's not in great shape now, a completely different vibe environment. He's never played with a guy like LeBron James next to him, a guy that casts that kind of shadow. At the scrutiny from an organization by their choosing, casting you aside at 25 when you think you're the best player in the world. Like, can you imagine like what that would do to someone psychologically? Not to mention the fact he has just built a home and he's got a young family and he's like, you know what I mean? All that stuff, all of that stuff. And he's just like, okay, this is going to take time. I mean, it might not even, maybe it doesn't even happen the rest of this year. And maybe it's next year. Maybe it's not till LeBron, who knows when, but it's going to take time. And there's no doubt. Now, the other night, Wednesday night, Charlotte game, that was the worst. That was the worst I'd seen. That was worse than Luka's first week as an NBA player.
It was really bad.
That's the truth.
It was shocking.
I mean, especially Adam. The other part that was I was jumping out to me in that game was, and he didn't play last night because it was a back-to-back, so they didn't play him last night. Which to me, I'm like, going, wait a second, doesn't this guy need to get in shape? Play. You're not going to play with a back-to-back. Can't you play him 25 minutes? I mean, what are you talking about right now? Anyway, they didn't play him last night. The other night against Charlotte, on top of the stuff we're talking about, and he got hunted last year by the Boston Celtics. And we really talked about that topic in the finals, right? The difference, though, and that was bad. The difference was on the other end of the floor, it was all his show. So even on the worst nights for Luka defensively, he's got the opportunity to get you back. And most nights, he gets you back in a big way. So you feel empowered. So you don't feel as self-conscious about getting picked on defensively when you know the other end of the floor is going to be a problem for them, right? Well, the other night against Charlotte, he was getting sought out every trip by Charlotte. And it was embarrassing to the point where he's getting beat off the dribble on the switches, but then they were having a trap and extend the trap. They were swinging the ball the other side, and the Lakers rotation was all confused because of the trap that they were trying to help Luka with to get him off the ball. They gave up open threes that were really important on the weak side of the floor. So it was all about Luka. Here's the difference. He couldn't get anybody back on the other end. So now you really feel like exposed. And for a guy on that level to feel exposed is something he's probably never felt in his entire life.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he looked like the other night. And you're kind of going, wow, he's got to get in shape so that he can dominate the other end of the floor to feel better about himself. And then it won't matter as much the defensive issues, because the other night, the fact that he was giving up that much on the defensive end, on the other end of the floor, he's not making shots. It was LeBron's game to win or lose. Luka was a spectator for that, while also getting embarrassed defensively. So right now, he's in a bad place, man. He's in a bad place physically. He's in a bad place psychologically. And I'm not, by the way, don't mistake this for 1 second in saying, I see what the Mavericks did and I agree with it, because I'm not saying that. Let's not take this too far. I never would have made this trade. But right now, it's like you're watching it going, oh, okay, I see what the Mavericks were saying. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. He's in a bad place, man. Physically, psychologically, what he's going through emotionally, personally, there's no telling what his mind is swirling. He's not in a good, clear, lucid place to go out there and do his thing. And physically, he can't anyway because he's not in good enough condition. So this is going to be a work in progress for the Lakers and Luka, maybe the rest of the year. And I saw, by the way, some LeBron James body language the other night against Charlotte in that loss. That told me a lot. Like right now, like he's kind of feeling all these things we're saying too. And Luka didn't play last night. LeBron drops 40 on Portland, and they get a win. Let's see the dynamic between these two guys the rest of the year, because I think this is going to be tough sledding, at least the rest of this season.
Last one for you, and we got to go quick because I want to get into these games, but I want you to put your referee cap on. Common foul, flagrant 1, flagrant 2. A story came out from Jason Richardson's podcast about Shaquille O'Neal back in his playing days with the Phoenix Suns, when it was said that he grabbed, as a hazing prank, Lou Amundson. By the way, Colorado guy, not one of the nicest guys by all accounts, got his mouthpiece, rubbed it in his butt crack, and then put it back in his locker room so he would never know. And of course, he wears it that night. To me, there's hazing, and then there's whatever this is. Is this a common foul, flagrant 1, flagrant 2? Is he out the game? What would you call this?
I'm calling that the day I find that out. I'm in that guy's driveway. Like it's I'm sorry. It's just, yeah, there's levels to this thing, man. I saw some hazing In my time in the league, it was mostly the typical friendly stuff. I'll pick up donuts and orange juice every day of training camp on the way to practice. I saw rookies get put through that. Karl Malone was probably the worst. Karl Malone used to do this thing at shoot around because that would be in the arena, not at the practice facility. You're in the arena for shoot around. And at the end of shoot around, you got the ball racks where all the balls get stacked up. He would go over to the ball rack and he would take them and he'd punt them as far as he could to the far corners of the arena and just make the rookies go gather them up. Like stuff like that, whatever. Yeah. I saw guys, this is back when we were flying commercial early. And so you're just going down a baggage claim just like everybody else. And, the vets would go right to the bus and the rookies would have to get their bags and help load them and then bring the bags. They wouldn't let the bellman bring the bags to the room. The rookies had to bring their bags to their rooms. Easy stuff, Yeah. What you're talking about? No, man. I'm sorry. It's game on.
I've never heard something that bad. Yeah. In my playing days, I was 225, 6'5", 225. Shaq is what, 7 foot, 300? I'm dropping hands, man. I'm throwing hands. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to get my butt kicked, but I cannot allow this to happen. To me, that's just so far over the line. We know Shaq's a goof. We know locker rooms can be whatever, but to me, that one is one I'd have a hard time laughing off and being like, you got me. You got me on that one. That seems a little intense, man. All right, let's take a break. So I want to get into these games. On the other side, we're going to start breaking down the Knicks. And Legs very high on the Knicks right now and very high on Karl-Anthony Towns. So I want to get that story as well as talk a little bit about the Bulls because I think they have an interesting thing going on the other side. First, let me tell you about Fitbod. It's like having a personal trainer in your pocket that builds you a fully personalized workout. It's an incredible interface to use. You always have your fitness goals. You want to be like, hey, I want to be in the gym. I want to be consistent with it, but maybe you don't know exactly how to maximize your workouts. Fitbod has an incredible interface that allows you to plug in what your goals are, your body type, how many days of the week you can work out, what equipment you have. It takes in all this information, and then it sets up a plan for you so that going into it. It's like having a personal trainer that tells you, hey, here's how you should target. If you want a 4-week plan or an 8-week plan, whatever it is, set your goals, set what's available to you, and then it'll get you on a consistent routine and help you stay accountable. It's a really great app that you might want to go spend hundreds of dollars on a personal trainer and a gym membership and all these different things. Fitbod right now is an incredible tool that can streamline all of that stuff for you. Even if you're on the road, as Legs is often, you only have whatever's in your hotel. It's different in every single hotel. Well, you can plug in, here's what's available to me. I'm trying to isolate these muscles or I'm trying to reach this goal, and it'll spit out a workout for you complete with details about how to perform the exercise, what things you should be focusing on, how quickly you should be going through your workouts. It even has a nice 3D model that shows you exactly how to do lifts. So if you're doing something you're unfamiliar with, it'll walk you through it so you know you're doing everything you need. It really is an incredible app. These technologies have come so far, and this is the best one I've seen. So level up your workout. Join Fitbod today to get your personalized workout plan. And what's great is, just for listening to the show and to this ad, you get 25% off of your subscription or you can try the app for free for 7 days if you go to fitbod.me/allNBA. The link should be in the description of the show, but just in case you're listening to it, fitbod.me/ALLNBA. Really great app, and check it out. Also want to tell you guys about FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just beginning at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because FanDuel is your home for NBA live betting. So even if you miss the first few minutes of the game or want to bet on a big fourth quarter comeback, you can make your first picks from the first whistle all the way up until the final buzzer. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join. I know a lot of my friends that like to gamble on the NBA, they love second half bets because you watch the first half, you kind of see what's going on. You see who has it tonight, what adjustments a team might make. Then you make your halftime same-game parlay or your bets. New FanDuel customers can get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to join today. Again, use our link, FanDuel.com/AllNBA, for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as has non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit Gambling Helpline MA or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, back here on the All-NBA show, myself and Tim Legler, and we had some great games to get into last night, and we're going to start with the Knicks beating the Bulls in overtime. This was an offense-only affair in the first half. I thought there was some better defense played in the second half. No Josh Hart, no OG Anunoby. That's a lot of the Knicks' defense. Miles McBride got his first start, and this game went down to the wire. Vooch hit a high arcing three with 49 seconds left. It was like a grenade he catches and has to shoot from the top of the key, threw it about 80 feet in the air, and it cashed to put the Bulls up 2. Jalen Brunson answered with a classic Jalen Brunson step back at the foul line to send it to overtime where the Knicks took over. But it was a good game. What stood out to you about this one?
Well, I think what's standing out to me in general about the Knicks right now is I've never seen Karl-Anthony Towns better. He is the way he is playing right now. He's had arguably better years statistically, a couple, but maybe not if you add everything into account. This might be the best year he's had statistically, but it's more than that. It's impact, and it's the way he's playing. His decision-making with when to be a perimeter player, when to be a power player, when to be a driver, his rebounding numbers. He's averaging 39 points, 13 rebounds in his last 3 games. His shot totals are higher. He had nights in Minnesota with the emergence of Anthony Edwards where there were nights that you watch Karl-Anthony Towns and it's like, man, he was absolutely relegated to playing on the perimeter, like most of the night. And now he's got empowerment. In a lot of nights, he has become a bigger or more important offensive factor than Jalen Brunson. And I didn't think that was possible when he first got there because of the way Jalen Brunson has come to play in New York and his usage and how much he dominates the ball. I was like, well, yeah, Karl-Anthony Towns he could fit in and play well there. He's not going to be dominant to this extent. Look, I mean, his shot totals the last 3 games, 24, 25, and 30. So he is getting touches. He's smart about how he's mixing up the ways that he attacks guys. And I've never seen him play as well as this. And he goes for 32 and 18 last night and had a poor night shooting the 3. He was 2 for 10 from the 3. So, he has a decent night shooting the 3, makes a couple more of those. You might have a 40, damn near a 40-20 game in an overtime game. So I just can't say enough about the way he's playing, man, and the way they're playing. Do you know, Adam, right now, the Knicks in the last 15 games, they're the 4th highest rated offensive team in the league. Do you know who the other 4 out of the top 5 are? How about Oklahoma City, Cleveland, Denver, and Boston? I may have just described the 4 best teams in the league right now. And then the Knicks are in that group. That's how good they've been, and in large part because of how good he has been.
Yeah. Miles McBride got the start, and the guy, got 19 shots up. He's not afraid to shoot it, 5 of 12 from 3. Obviously he's not going to start when the team is fully healthy, but to me, he's such a big X factor for them because Brunson's tough to guard. The small little guards get into the lane, do all of his different things, but Miles McBride makes the shots that break your back. And he had a bunch of them last night, including a 3 in overtime. That was just an absolute killer. What do you make of his game, and what do you think his role is on this team in the playoffs?
Yeah, I love his game. The thing I love about Miles McBride is he's that guy that can, some nights he gets more touches and more inclusivity than others. And last night, obviously, he took 19 shots. That's he's loving that. He's a scorer. He's a natural scorer. But then in the regular season, when everybody's healthy and you have OG Anunoby and you have Josh Hart, who they didn't have last night, his role's different. Coming off the bench, less minutes, less touches. He can go, 2 or 3 games and not get a lot of touches. And then when he does get another opportunity because of foul trouble or an injury, he's so ready to jump on that moment. Because he plays the same way all the time. He always believes the next shot's going in. He's got incredible confidence, very stoic in the way he goes about everything, not overly emotional. I love how even-keeled he is. Very talented, very important piece for them because telling you right now, there will be moments in the playoffs when Miles McBride will have, a 6-minute stretch in a second quarter of the third game of the first playoff series where Miles McBride gives you 8 or 10 points that you really need. Or in the fourth quarter, the first 6 minutes when they're resting Brunson, Miles McBride in a moment like that will give you 8 points that you really needed to stay afloat. Like, he's that kind of guy. It's impactful what he does, and he played very well last night. And 12 threes, makes 5, 9 of 19 from the field, 23 points. You're shorthanded. Bulls played well in this game. It was a very hard fought game. Bulls come back late to force overtime, then the Knicks get it done.
The other interesting thing that's going on with the Knicks, at least from my perspective, is Micthell Robinson is cleared to play 5-on-5. He probably will be back in the next, couple of weeks. I don't know if there's been an exact date put on it, but he's obviously such a big piece for them. But as you mentioned, Karl-Anthony Towns is having what you're calling his best year ever, his most complete year ever, and he's playing it at the 5. How do you think Micthell Robinson's return, especially this late into the season, what do you foresee being some of the questions you want answered in the early go when he gets back?
That's a good question, because you think about, I mentioned some of the reasons that Karl-Anthony Towns was relegated to being a perimeter player in Minnesota, where Anthony Edwards emerges, but it was also because of Rudy Gobert's presence. Obviously, Rudy Gobert, screen dive all night long, sometimes multiple times on the same possession. So he's occupying some of that area that Karl-Anthony Towns needed. So Micthell Robinson's very similar. He's going to be pick, dive, lob. That's what he does. He's all over the offensive glass. So that's a good question. I hope it's got to affect Karl-Anthony Towns somewhat when they're playing together, because you just can't have 2 7-footers occupying the paint at the same time offensively in this league. It's just too congested. So let's see if he can find a better balance, or maybe there's not as many minutes together. Look, I don't know that Micthell Robinson needs to be out there for 25, 30 minutes a night. So Micthell Robinson might be super effective in 18 to 20 minutes a night. He'll still get you double-digit rebounds most nights. He's still going to be a great rim protector. He's going to play with high energy. Maybe your best lineup is going to be Karl-Anthony Towns at the 5, with whatever lineup you want to put around him. And they've got some depth at the guard and on the wing, whoever that may be on a given night, with Micthell Robinson being more a guy that spells Karl-Anthony Towns. They'll play some together, but they cannot pair them up to the extent that he was paired up with Rudy Gobert. They cannot do that, because I think that will limit Karl-Anthony Towns' consistency and effectiveness in using his all-around skill set.
The Knicks just went, I think, 5-1 or 6-1 without OG Anunoby, which to me is really big. I mean, we talk about what teams are starting to peak at this moment, and obviously the next stretch is the most important one, but teams with a little bit of momentum, and the Knicks are one of them. And to do it without OG Anunoby is big. They didn't play Josh Hart last night, but he is expected to play tonight. But before I move on to what's coming up for them, I just wanted to, I actually skipped the line here because I wanted to mention Mikal Bridges, who, you look at the stats, good game, 13, 10, and 5, 6 of 16 shooting, 1 of 5 from 3. Not a great shooting night, wasn't overall great. But the play he made at the end of regulation, the Bulls run a great inbound play, and they get Vooch down screening for Kobe White, so you get the switch, and Vooch seals deep in the restricted area. He has Mikal Bridges pinned behind him, great entry pass, lob over the top, and Vooch just has to put his shoulder into him, which he did a good job of, and just do the little 2-foot bunny. Mikal Bridges, though, somehow found a way to perfectly time it to get a block that I think there's only maybe 10 players in the NBA that make that block, given if they were pinned that deep with that much time on the clock, and he somehow come up with it. He's a winning player, and that was the epitome of a winning play to me.
That was one of the best defensive plays I've seen all year. To the extent I watched it 3 times. Yeah. I watched it 3 times. I couldn't believe what I saw. He was completely compromised defensively, pinned under the rim, falling back. And, listen, we know that he's got that incredibly long reach. That's when we first noticed at Villanova. Like, man, this dude's arms, when he gets in a stance, it's just ridiculous how wide his reach is. And you saw it, every inch of it he needed on that play to make that play. It's a game-saving type of play that he made defensively, man. Cannot overstate it. If you didn't see it, go watch it, because it defies logic. He was able to get a piece of that ball based on where he was when he had to try to jump and time that up.
It was, I mean, he was dead to rights. And maybe, do you think they screwed up the switch? Because it was a simple play. It was a nice action, but he was in a position where if you just paused it when the ball was in the air being entered to Vooch, you would think, oh man, Bulls got one. They snuck this one out. So was it a mistake before that? Or like, how did you evaluate that play?
What a mistake defensively?
I mean, because he was in such
That
a
they got
compromised position. Yeah, he was
Yeah.
in such a compromised spot and then made up for it.
No, I mean, that was like literally perfect execution on the part of the Bulls to get exactly what they
Yeah.
want, and it was just overcome by freakish athleticism and timing on the part of Mikal Bridges. You know, and it's funny because Mikal Bridges was a guy first came into this league. His defense was light years ahead of his offense, and that's what we talked about. Like, this looked like a guy that's going to be a perennial all-league defensive caliber player. That's what he looked like, and was primarily a corner three-point shooter for the Suns. And then he had to do more than that offensively in Brooklyn. It's almost like now we focus a lot more on his offense. On the nights that he's good or bad, we talk about that a lot and not so much about his defense. He just reminded you on that play, like, why we became enamored with Mikal Bridges in the first place. Because it was really just incredible what he did.
I got a couple things for you on the Bulls that I want to talk about, because I find them you look at what's interesting about them. I really like Lonzo Ball, and I really like Josh Giddey. I actually like all of their backcourt, Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu. I like all of them, but I want to focus in on Giddey and Lonzo Ball. They have a plus 11 net rating together. Two very high IQ players for a team that's not having a good year, for a losing team, 22 and 34, to have a positive 11 net rating between your core guards is pretty impressive. And I get why. Two very high IQ players. Giddey is in line for an extension this year. You assume they made that trade thinking that they were going to keep him long-term. Lonzo just received an extension, so you would think those are something of building blocks. They're far away from building around it, but I just like when you put passing players together, high IQ players together, and even though Giddey's not the best defensively, he does have length. Lonzo has length. Last night, I thought they made life difficult for Jalen Brunson, and I just watched that and I go, look, I don't like what the Bulls are doing overall, but those two guys, to me, they're intriguing. I think you build a fun team around those two guys.
Yeah, it's every time I watch Josh Giddey, it's like there's an awkwardness to his game that kind of, it belies what he's doing out there. And, you look at the end of the game, you're going, wait a second, this guy had 27 points and 16 rebounds, right? Like, the way he looks, the way he plays, the way he moves, like, none of it looks super smooth. But what he does have is incredible instincts and feel for the game, and as Lonzo Ball does. So you play those two guys together. I mean, you've got one of the smartest groups on the floor on any court in the league on a given night, with just those two guys on the floor, because of their ability to anticipate the next action. And that's kind of what Giddey relies on. He's not blowing by anybody. He's not jumping over anyone, right? He's not out muscling people. He's just really, really smart and skilled enough with his shot making that he can have scoring nights like that. But his rebounding, playmaking is really the thing. Like, his rebounding from that spot is critical to a team's success. And then just the way he moves the ball, it's so quick and decisive. The ball goes immediately to the next place, gets it out of trouble, and boom, there it is. It's delivered. Lonzo Ball plays the same way. You put them together, and you're right. They tend to make guys better. So if they can find the right mix there, the right group, you've got two guys that promote good offense the way that they play.
So, look, the Bulls probably aren't going to do anything smart just because they haven't done smart things for over a decade. But if you're trying to build a team, they're in that limbo zone right now. They're not bad enough to be a tanking team, whatever. Everybody knows. But if you try to say, okay, if they're building around Lonzo and Giddey, can you build around that? And here's my thing. You're spending enough money on those two guys that I don't know you're going to have the traditional two superstars and then they fit around it. But could you build a team where there was one star, which they don't have on the roster now, and four Giddey/Lonzos? Because Lonzo gives you a lot of defense. Both give you a lot of length. Both give you an enormous amount of playmaking. The shooting is questionable. But I keep thinking, well, if I was to build the best version of a team that featured those two guys, I would look for a Franz Wagner type centerpiece. Like, to me, he's the caliber of star because he's a smart player. He fits in there. You need a lot of smart players. And then you need some athleticism around, probably at your 5 and your 3. And I look at that and I go, I don't know what the Bulls are doing. They're so far away. But if you told me you had a team of like Franz and Lonzo and Giddey and two athletes that can play some defense at the 3 and the 5, I'd say I don't know if that team is great, but they could be a Pacers type team. Really high energy, smart, move the ball well, and present problems. I don't know if that's their path forward, but when I watch them play, that's the best path forward I can forge for them.
Yeah, that's probably true. Let me ask you a question. When you talk about the athletic three, are you factoring Buzelis into that? Because I think
he might be the three.
He's another guy I think that is definitely a part of their future. And now that he's
Yeah.
gotten more extended run second half of the year, I mean, he's for the most, he didn't play well last night, or at least statistically didn't do a lot, but he's had a really good stretch. And he's definitely got the bounce and the athleticism that you're talking about. So, those are three, you call, Giddey and Lonzo Ball, like your young players, they've just got a lot more traction right on the tire, a lot more wear on the tires than especially Lonzo Ball with the injuries than Buzelis. But I think he's another piece that factors into that. So you do that, you have to add obviously a cornerstone offensive player. Franz Wagner is the guy you mentioned, like just that caliber player that you need that, because I think the ceiling for Giddey, Ball, and Buzelis offensively is too unknown with Buzelis yet. So you need that, and then you need a real athlete in the middle, and then probably some defenders and athletes to round out your rotation if that's what you go with. But that would be a very smart team. That would be a team that I think would really move the ball and be hard to defend if that's kind of what your foundation was going forward.
And speaking of which, Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero had a really nice game last night together. When they're good together, that Magic team is really good. I'm not saying he's available or anything like that. I'm just more talking the mold of player that you would have to add, because it can't be like I don't think Lonzo and Giddey are going to work with somebody that you dump the ball into and stand around. You need a star player that moves the ball and plays. And so Franz Wagner kind of fits that bill. That's why I used him. And then I mentioned the Pacers as a possible comp. The Pacers get the win last night, 127-113 over the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies give up the 2 seed. They owned it for about a month, maybe 3 weeks, and they give it up last night as Denver gets a win. They get a loss, but the Pacers roll 127-113. I know you had some notes on this one.
Yeah, listen, I'm always kind of injecting the Pacers into these conversations, man.
You love
Watch out. Watch out. I'm just telling you, they had 50 points in the second quarter last night. 50. And they had like 45 in the last 10 minutes. They were down 13 points at the start of this game. And they end up with, what was it at halftime? 78-59. So they're up 19 at half. They were down 12 early. So they outscored them by 31 points over the last 18 minutes of the first half. Against a team that, you think, hey, Memphis gets labeled as one of those teams. They compete. They're tough. Indiana did whatever they wanted to with this team last night offensively. When Indiana right now resembles exactly the team that made the run in the postseason a year ago. Now, listen, I understand there are things that are different this year in the East. Cleveland is different than they were a year ago. Boston is Boston. I think we still expect, what they're going to be in the playoffs. So that hasn't changed. The Knicks are different. They have Karl-Anthony Towns now. We've been talking about that. Pacers it was fortuitous, their path last year to the conference finals. Make no mistake about it. You didn't get Milwaukee 100%. You got the Knicks decimated by injuries. You end up in the conference finals. But I'm just telling you, their style of play that we became enamored with last year at their best is exactly what they look like right now. They are just flat out rolling on teams. So that to me was the biggest takeaway on the Pacers side. Their bench last night comes in as they usually do. Benedict Mathurin, Obi Toppin, TJ McConnell, Thomas Bryant. Those guys turned the game. They come in toward the end of the first quarter and they flipped the script entirely. Completely dominated Memphis's bench with their pace, their production, their lively legs. Thomas Bryant's been a great acquisition for them, by the way. They went that route. They lose Isaiah Jackson. They go that route. They needed a big. Thomas Bryant has been a revelation for them. He's given them great minutes as that big off the bench, and their bench completely changed the game for them last night. They're fun, and again, they're playing peak level right now. So just keep an eye on them. They've risen all the way from they were 10th, like early in the year. They're 4th in the Eastern Conference now, and playing their best basketball of the season as we speak.
If you were to predict, more likely that the Knicks bump up to the 2 seed and pass Boston, or more likely that the Pacers, I guess it's 5 games. That's kind of a lot to catch up to the Knicks. Probably Knicks catching Boston.
Yeah, I
2
don't see
games is
that
just
happen.
tougher than 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would see
Yeah.
it. Look, the Knicks, listen, the Knicks, they're going to have their first opportunity to cut into that on Sunday. They play Boston in Boston in a major game, primetime game on ABC. They got a chance to, when you get a head-to-head, that's your best opportunity. So, like, you're talking about 2 games in the loss column to catch Boston. Now, I think Boston's going to play at a higher rate than they have to this point the rest of the season.
I do too.
They're not going to catch the Cavs, but they're going to play, I think, at a higher winning percentage than they have to this point in the season the rest of the way. So I don't think the Knicks catch them. And I don't think Indiana's going to be able to make up 5 games of loss column on the Knicks as a result. But the big question is that 4-5, Indiana, Milwaukee. And Indiana, as we know, has really had their way with the Bucks. So over the last couple of years, that's interesting to me as a 4-5 matchup in the first round. And I can't believe, can you believe we're sitting here out of the break talking about the 6 seed Detroit Pistons?
I love it. I can't believe it, man. Your Pistons.
The 6 seed in the Eastern, and by the way,
firmly.
Within striking distance of the 4 seed. They're 3 games back of the 4 seed. I mean, it's incredible. Honestly, it's incredible what they have done to turn that around. But I don't think that they catch necessarily Bucks and Pacers, but that 4-5, Indiana, Milwaukee, if it ends up being that is a, based on their history over the last couple of years, that's a super interesting first round series if we get that.
And by the way, you mentioned the game coming up, Knicks Celtics on Sunday. Knicks play the Cavs tonight. The Knicks have a 3-game stretch. If you want to throw the Sixers in, which they play, I think, on Tuesday, but they play the top 2 teams now coming up. And to me, it's just a huge measuring stick game for all the teams, because it's kind of a round robin. They all play each other here over the weekend. And I just can't wait for it. It's early enough in the season, late enough in the season, but early enough that I think all these teams are going to give their best punch, not be afraid of showing whatever. And I'm just curious to see how that round robin shakes out, because that really is the top of the East.
And you wonder, Adam, if that played into the Knicks thinking last night when you said, like, Josh Hart didn't play. Could he have played? Yeah. Maybe. But you got this game coming up, these 2 games coming up. So you give them an extra night against the Chicago Bulls. Now, they worked harder than they probably thought they had to go to overtime, but they get the win. And also last night, I think OG Anunoby was listed as game time decision, I believe, going into the game. So that means you probably have him available for those 2 games against Cleveland and Boston. And so now it's great because it'll give you a real honest, measure of how these teams stack up and how do the Knicks factor in. And can the Knicks possibly be a legitimate threat to those 2 teams?
Do you have any notes on Memphis last night? They've now lost 2 in a row, 3 of their last 4. And they have a tough schedule coming up. They're at Orlando, at Cleveland. So what do you make of them falling out of the 2 seed? And what did you see last night?
Yeah, I do have a couple notes on them. First of all, they now they were 25-15. They've gone 11-4 in their last 15 games. Okay, and they've lost 3 out of 4 actually. Yeah, pretty good, right? It's solid. And their 3 losses to Oklahoma City. No shame in that. They lost at the Clippers, which again, Clippers are a tough team. No shame in that. And then they lose to Indiana. No shame in that. The way Indiana's playing, but they gave up a lot of points, man. Those 3 games, 127, 128, 125. So their defense is struggling right now. But overall, I think Memphis is a very good team that can be inconsistent some nights in terms of their defensive effort. Here's the bigger point, though, with them that I'm noticing. Ja Morant, when I watch Ja Morant play now, like, a lot of nights the numbers are still very good. Last night, not so much. 4 for 15 from the field, 12 points, 6 assists, no rebounds. Interesting. No rebounds in the game. 0 for 3 from the 3, 4 for 5 from the line. So not a very good night for Ja Morant by his standards. My bigger concern is Ja Morant overall. Are you noticing what I'm noticing, which is maybe it's because of the last injury he had? I don't see the same reckless abandon. Now, maybe that's smart. Stay on the court. because the guy doesn't weigh very much, and he gets up in the air and he's taking off this incredible speed and verticality, and he doesn't weigh a lot, so it doesn't take much contact when you're in the air to cause these awkward landings. And we've seen a number of them throughout Ja Morant's career. So I don't know if it's a conscious decision, but when I watch him, I don't see it. And as a result, I wonder if it's taken a little something off of like his peak level and what makes him so special. Because I look at his numbers this year. It's a career low for him from the field in terms of percentage. 3-point percentage has never been great. It's again not this year, 31%. Free throws lowest in the last 4 years. Free throw attempts per game, lowest in the last 4 years. His assists lowest in the last 3 years. Now his minutes are down 2, so that has played into that somewhat. But when I watch it, look, and they've had good team success. And Jaren Jackson has become more of like the focal point offensively. He's having a great year, All-Star. But there's something about Ja Morant that's just like not as eye-opening when you watch him play every night. And I'm wondering if you see the same thing that I see when I watch him, and what ultimately does that mean for Ja Morant and for Memphis?
Yeah. I to be honest with you, I haven't noticed it, but it does make sense. And when you just look at the numbers, he has not had the same pop to him. He just hasn't been putting up the same efficiency. So you do wonder about it. And to be honest with you, this Grizzlies team has been good without him, or in spite of him not being at that level all the way up into this point. But when you talk about the pre-All-Star break, and then there's the post-All-Star break, and then there's the playoffs, they're not going anywhere without Ja Morant. They have to be a Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant team. They got Bane and all those other guys, but they need him to be a star player. So it is something to look at. And by the way, Legs, I don't know if you've seen this. They have the second toughest remaining strength of schedule. The Grizzlies do. They have a very tough road home. So they were a 2 seed. They fall to the 3 seed. You go at Orlando, at Cleveland. You got the Knicks coming up, the Thunder, the Mavs. Like, they just have a bunch of tough games the rest of the way. And I worry about them as a team. We saw this with Houston. It only takes 1 or 2 bad weeks in this league, in the Western Conference in particular, and you can lose not just 1 or 2 spots. You could fall 5, 6, 7 spots in the West with just a couple of bad weeks.
And I think the things we're talking about now, and I've been impressed the games I've seen Memphis. Like they're just good, and they're deep, and they come at you, and on different nights they get different role
Unique
players
style.
play great for them. Yeah, and I think they're really well coached. I think Taylor Jenkins is really, really smart. They seem to play for him. They seem to like him personally. So they got something good going on, but I think why the stuff we're talking about, you can't quite just get there with Memphis. You can't quite get there with the Houston Rockets, right?
Yeah.
And that is why a team like Denver, who had some issues earlier in the year and is now red hot, and now you go, okay, they're hot. Murray's playing out of his mind right now. And they still have Jokic. You're like, okay, at the end of the day, I guess it's still Denver. And Denver is the biggest challenge to Oklahoma City, despite the fact that Memphis and Houston have been so good all year. It's hard to take that last big step with them. And I think for me, when I'm watching them, like, yeah, man, they're a good, well-balanced team. But like Ja Morant's, he's gone from 27 a game to 26 a game to 25 a game. Now he's down to 20 a game. And part of that is other guys helping more, but part of it also is I think his foot is not on the accelerator to the extent that it was that separated him from basically every other quick guard in the league. And he plays a more controlled game now. And when he's not a super efficient shooter or scorer, that those 3 or 4 or 5 plays a game that he would make with his explosive acceleration and then able to jump and finish at the rim over guys, like you take those plays away, and it's like, okay, now like there are other guys in the league that look more like Ja Morant. When it was Ja Morant was one of one, like the way he played and with that level of athletic ability, and it's just like he's more subdued. And I think it's a conscious decision on his part, and it kind of got me thinking last night as I was watching, like, it's just different. It's not the 2 or 3 plays a game where you kind of jump off the sofa because you can't believe what you just saw. You're not getting that. as much with Ja Morant. And I think, look, it's probably smart on his part, but I also wonder what the overall effect is on their team, because he is the one guy that can do things physically on the court that no one else can do. And they don't really have other guys like that. He is it. And if he's not doing that as often in the course of the game, how does that limit them?
Yeah. All right, let's get to our weekend slate. We always get you out of here. By the way, we'll have another episode up tomorrow with Mark Stein. We'll be going over some of the big news and notes from around the league, so you will have a weekend episode, but we'll get you out of our regular scheduled programming with Weekend Slate. This segment is sponsored by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. And Legs, what a slate we have. We got Knicks at Cavs tonight, 10 out of 10. Grizzlies at Magic. I'd just call that one maybe like an 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10. Warriors at Kings. And then, I hear you're in Houston for a little Wolves at Rockets. This is another great game because you got two smash-mouth defenses. I know that game is going to be the top priority, but what do you think of the slate?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say I'm excited to get my first in-person look at Houston tonight. I haven't seen them all year, and I'm looking forward to, in particular, to hopefully some early chirping that goes on between Anthony Edwards and Dylan Brooks. That could make the night really, really fun if that picks up. Both of these teams like to talk, so this will be a lot of fun to watch, I think. But I'm excited to see Houston and to see if the competitiveness that I see on TV, like how that translates to sitting there, because I think I'm going to be really impressed with that. Hopefully I get a great game. That to me is also important in just looking at how you view the rest of the Western Conference. I think I'm going to get a great taste of that tonight.
Rockets really need it, man. Minnesota Timberwolves really need it, by the way, as well. And the Rockets 3 of 7, so that's a great game. On Saturday, we have Lakers at Nuggets. I'm excited for that one. The Nuggets, by the way, in the Jokic era, have never had a 10-game win streak. They're at 9 right now, which ties the high of the 10 years Jokic has been there, but never having a 10-game win streak, and they have a chance to do that. I think you actually have it backwards. I think it's Nuggets at Lakers there, but these two teams matching up is always fun. I'm excited for that one. And then lastly, if we pull up again, Knicks at Celtics, you're calling this one as well. Man, you got yourself a nice little weekend. Knicks at Celtics on Sunday is a great game.
No, I'm so excited because I've had some great games on paper this year that didn't materialize because guys were out. I'm hoping to get two great ones tonight and Sunday, getting that game. The Denver Lakers game tomorrow is interesting because I'm thinking Luka, assuming he plays, and then Jokic. We didn't get a chance to talk about the Four Nations. Like we were going to talk about that with the hocky tournament, which was incredible. Yeah. And I watched almost all of that game last night because I was so into that. We should do this for the NBA. We should do a Four Nations. Let's come up with the 4 best nations that we can come up with, and maybe next week we do a show where we create those 4 teams of 5 and what that tournament would look like.
And it saves the All-Star weekend. I mean, this is what happened with the NHL. They said the All-Star weekend's a joke in the NHL too. Let's get rid of it. Let's try to make something people are actually interested in, playing for pride of country. And they had something that was absolutely incredible. Really, it's funny. The NBA came back last night. I missed it for a week. I'm all excited. All the conversation was about the NHL. I don't remember the last time the NHL scooped the NBA in terms of intrigue. But they did it last night, and kudos to them. The NBA could probably take a lesson, and I'm with you, Legs. Let's do it next week. We'll talk about it. All right, we got a couple super chats to hit. Mr. Exquisite Nugget says, no, Adam, no, James, no, Legs. New York losing versus Boston in 6. All right, not really a question, but just a take. Okay. And then we have Mike, but not Ike. Legs, Murray has his legs. Pickett propaganda also has a +31 with Jokic. Look out. But are we expecting them to keep the 2 seed and continue versus the Lakers? So Nuggets question here. Murray has his legs back. Are you expecting the Nuggets to hold on? By the way, Grizzlies have the 2nd toughest remaining schedule. Nuggets the 3rd toughest. So the Nuggets have a lot of tough games on their schedule coming up as well. But do you think they hold on to that 2 seed?
Denver will be the 2 seed. I'm not even going to say they can. They're going to be the 2 seed. And it's I think important that they are the 2 seed. Couple reasons. One, you don't go on the road in the 2nd round, and you avoid Oklahoma City till the conference finals. So you certainly don't want to end up at 4. So it's important to them to end up 2. And I just think the way they're playing right now, and it comes down to Jamal Murray. I mean, I listed him. We did a show yesterday where we talked about the most influential players the rest of the year that in terms of deciding who's the last team standing, and I put Jamal Murray in that group. the way he's playing. He's that important to Denver. This is as good as he's looked. I mean, he's probably, would you agree, he's probably playing as well as he's played since the bubble?
Probably. Well, he was great in the championship run, so I think he was better in the championship run than the bubble. But
well, yeah, I mean the stakes were higher in the championship, right? So I guess there, but like just in terms of raw numbers, I think this is the best he's played.
He had a 30-point triple-double in the finals. You know, he had some big games in that run, but nonetheless, take it or leave it, whichever one. But what I would say is Murray in the regular season, he's only had these short windows where he's played at the level he's playing right now. And right now it's been, 15 games that he's been at this level. So the question now is, can he continue this for the rest of the regular season? And if he can, I know people are skeptical of the Nuggets because their defense has been terrible and this or that. Jamal Murray has been good for 15 games now. And when he's good, the Nuggets win 9-10 in a row. So the Nuggets, to me, it all comes down to him. And if he's a true star, like all-star caliber player, if he is that going forward, the Nuggets have two of them, and now they're legit contenders again. And that's the big question. All right. Hit that outro
totally
music, James.
Agree,
Everybody.
Because he's a game ender. He's a game ender, and that's what he looks like now.
That's what he looks like for sure. All right, everybody, we appreciate you guys tuning in all week. We're going to be back next week. From here on out, we should have a more consistent schedule. We got games to talk about, and the games are delivering. You saw that weekend slate. It's going to be a great show on Monday and all week next week. I can't wait for it. We'll also be back on Playback before long. So if you guys want to check us out on our next live watch-along second screen, go to playback.tv/all-NBA show and sign up so you don't miss it. They give you an alert to your phone whenever we go live there, and you're not going to want to miss it. It was a lot of fun last time. We had Will Perdue on, Legs and Will Perdue telling some old stories. I know it was a highlight. We'll try to get some more people to hop on with us when we do the next one. Everybody hit that like button for us on the way out. We'll see you on Monday.
We all silly like the mayor.